mistakes I wish I hadn't. Things don't just change, we make them happen. I proved a point, forgave my father. Became less bitter, cause love is softer. I think I'm going off the deep end. I think I took a left when I should've took a right at the bend. I think I'm looking at the wrong trends. All these different people around me and they're calling me friend. Come on man, let's just pass the time. From amphetamine to weed, all it takes is a drive. And it's alright, I got you this time. Let's just pick up something quick, I want out of my mind. I think I'll look into some new friends. Everyone I know seems to somehow trip me up in the end. I can't wait around until then. I can turn this thing around. I just need a place to begin. Come on man, let's just pass the time. From amphetamine to weed, all it takes is a drive. It's alright, I got you this time. Let's just pick up something quick, I want out of my mind. And life's just a race against time. Try and make something pretty before I die. And if I can make a dime off being honest, then I think I'll be fine. Stop stealing written on a little piece of paper. Cold turkey's what I thought. I said goodbye to my neighbor. I'm a little frantic, can't pull you no favors. But I'll smoke all of your weed and leave you with no papers. got people looking out for me. I guess I set a new bar. I never get that hurt. I guess you call that good luck. But if I'm writing honestly, I've never felt so stuck. I've been looking for work, but can't get past the loading truck. And school's just not for me. I'm in enough debt from my other bluffs. I can remember the taste of your bottom lip. I know that sounds a little messed up and sick. Can't stop reliving all the things that we did. You probably hate me for being such a stupid spoiled kid. I've tried to move on, write some new songs, but nothing's ever as good as a past. Could be my last chance to enhance my way of life, remove your heart and my mask. But I'm still leaving, sometimes seeing graduation with the rest of our class. And how I sat there with your mother, wondering if young relationships last. Our first date, I made I just keep calling on the help of my peers, but their success makes me distracted.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. This is a special episode of SchuBros Unfiltered. My name is Ross. I am, of course, joined by the effervescent, the opulent, the magnificent, the whatever word you want to come up with. I'm out of words at this point. My big bro, Kyle Schumann, over there on the other side. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing good, man. I'm looking at the chat, and looks like you and Luke had some fun together before I got here. But Luke, no, I will not become naked and famous. I might become famous. I might become naked, but I will never become naked and famous. I'm doing good, man. Going out there having fun today. And by going out there and having fun, I mean I stayed in this office and worked all day.
All right.
And then I went and ran some errands after work. And I got some more work to do once we get done with this. So. Considering a couple things here to do. It's the 10-year anniversary of the Bryan College Station Marathon, which was my first ever marathon that I ran, and my only marathon that I ran
It's the
10
first
years
time
ago.
Kyle took a 20-mile taxi ride just to say he ran a marathon.
No, I ran about 16 miles, walked about 3 miles, and then walked the next 7, and I ran the last 0.2 to say I finished running. I pulled a hamstring in the middle though, so that wasn't fun. But I'm thinking of doing the half marathon. I'm thinking of training for and doing the half marathon.
Mm-hmm.
It's May 28th. Let's just say it's June. That gives me naked would come first and last. No. And no, I can't. But just be something to say I did it. I haven't ran that distance in a while. I've done a couple 10Ks since then, but I haven't run anything past a 10K in a long time. So, and help get me back in better shape than I am now. And then there's a local comedy group that has started coming back now that coronavirus is being lifted and bars are being opened, and they are having performances every Wednesday night. So I'm gonna go enjoy a comedy show next week.
Oh.
And if I like the format and I'm not opposed to it, which they'd have to be pretty, like they'd have to do something really bad for me to not like the format. But as long as it's not bad, and it's not like, oh, it's open mic, but you have 10-minute clip. It's like, I don't want my first performance to be a 10-minute clip. I could do probably like a 5 minutes set.
Yeah, 10 minutes is a long time to get up there and die.
Yeah, exactly. So if it's like a 5-minute or less set, I have some good material. Or I have some material that I think I can get worked up, and I want to try that. I'm going to definitely mention the fact that you and I had talked about being a comedy duo, but the simple fact that every single show would end in a fight probably wasn't good for the crowd. Although dinner and a show, baby.
Yeah. So the story there is Kyle and I, of course, know all of the really embarrassing things about each other. We could ruin each other's reputation very quickly if we decided to. So, it probably would turn into an insult fest where we would just start trying to one-up each other, and it would start devolving quickly into, oh, yeah? Well.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the funniest thing, is how many times we've told the stories at family functions, and how someone just magically has appeared in those stories because they've heard the story so many times they think they've been there.
Yeah.
That's a great phenomenon. That's how good of storytellers we are, that people feel like they were actually there because of how vivid of a recanting we can give.
Yeah, I've called our sister on that because she'll be telling stories about events, and it's like, you were one. Like, there's no chance you remember this occurring. Like, I don't even remember this occurring, and it happened to me. So,
yeah,
there's just things it's like, okay, you weren't even there, you weren't involved, and there's other people, but, we tell, and I guess the point there is we've rehearsed these stories so much that we've got the
I wouldn't say we've
comedic timing.
rehearsed them. We've just told them so
We've
many
got
times.
the comedic timing down. So, guys, before we go any further, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube so that you get to know when the SchuBros are coming to you live, when you get to know when all the other ZGM products are going to be out, HSP, Forum, whether we're doing a Friday night comfy post, any of those things. Now, Kyle has some news, and we're not going to wait till the end of the show this time. We're actually going to put this out early. There you go. He put out the big test, and he brought in a good guest. Okay, that's enough of that.
So I reached out. Well, I've reached out to his counterpart, the Marine rapper, on TikTok, and he said he'd come on the show. And I'm still waiting for him to actually get in touch with me or tell me how to get in touch with him. But his counterpart, one of his music brothers, Tophertown Music, reached out to him too. I was like, look, I'd love to have you on the show. Love to have either one of you on the show. Both of y'all make great content. Both of y'all are, very opinionated, and both of y'all, are talking conservative values, and it's something I can get behind. I'd love to have you on the show. And he, told me, hey, go over here and send me an email, and then I'll get back to you. So we have arranged a time and date finally.
Right.
He'll be on the show Saturday at noon.
This Saturday at noon. So this
Yes,
Saturday
sir.
at noon, he is what best could be described as a TikTok star. He is the conservative, the black conservative star of TikTok, which
He's one of them, yeah.
Kyle's now a big user of. So for us, it's going to be an interesting conversation. There's a lot to talk about with him. We're going to talk about some of that tonight because we have the riots going on in Minnesota that are now spreading around the country. LA, we hear that Antifa is planning some riots for Denver. There's some other places that they're looking to go. And this is, for me, this is akin to burning your house down to make a point. It really at the end defeats the point.
I had a conversation with a lady earlier today, and she was of African American descent, or she was, black, however you want to say it today. I was like, look, when Rodney King stuff happened, I understood the riots. Those made sense because this man killed a black man, and no, I'm not gonna twerk to get a guess. Sorry. So like the cop killed a man and then was found not guilty. Then a riot made sense because justice did not prevail. But this happened, what was it, Monday?
I'm not certain what day. So again,
it was like Monday or Sunday. It was like Sunday or Monday. It was recent.
The video came out. I don't know when. Kyle's looking at the chat right now. If you're over in the chat section, Kyle got that juicy booty though. Thick boy. All right, so let's not make light of this situation though. So
that's as close as you're gonna see me throwing it back on the air you'll ever see. Right there. You didn't see my butt. You saw my front. Yeah.
So the other thing about Kyle is he's lately taken to wearing shirts that are exactly the same color as the walls behind him. So when I watch the videos back, it awfully makes it look like his head is just floating into space.
I can see myself. I'm looking at the video.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're just glancing down at the video and you're not really just like actively watching it and looking,
then you're listening to the amazing voice that you and I have, or at least that I have, and that you somewhat have.
I don't know what.
You've got the topics. I've got the the pretty voice.
So Luke, I think I just figured out what he said. He said that this event occurred on Monday. So the video comes out.
Yes.
The video is atrocious. The video, yes. I mean, there's no two ways about it. The cop is in the wrong here. I don't know how you can spin this. And again, for the people who came out and said, "Oh, well, his criminal history." Again, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
The guy was laying on the ground. There was 4 cops there. The guy.
It doesn't matter if he was convicted of killing someone 20 years ago, got out of jail, whatever reason why, and was now doing something. He is still innocent until proven guilty, and the most that they should be doing is putting him under arrest or arresting him.
And if you watch the video, which I warn you, if you watch it, it's graphic. You will watch a man pass away in front of your eyes. Is what you're going to watch. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't
No.
arguing. He just kept saying, hey, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. There were 4 police officers on location, 2 of whom were African American. Let's point that out. 2 of whom were black. But it's not really relevant to the overall story other than it kind of defeats some of the racist narrative. He was laying there. He was subdued. He was in cuffs. There was no need to keep his...
Why didn't they just pick his ass up and throw him in the car?
Look, he could have moved his knee down 6 inches to the mid of his back, and that guy would have been just as subdued, just as taken care of, without the possibility of asphyxiating. So
he could have put his hands on him instead of his knee.
So
with your hands, you can put a lot of force, but you can't if it's like on the back of your neck, you're not going to choke someone out at the back of your neck. But with your knee, when you're putting your whole body's weight on someone like that, then yes, you can asphyxiate them. You can kill them that way. And that no person deserves that treatment. So like I was saying, Rodney King, man, that made sense. But this shit happened Monday. The cops got fired, was it Monday or Tuesday? And then the riots happened last night, Wednesday. I understand that this is bullshit. This shouldn't have happened, but give the justice system some time to prevail. The cops got fired. Yeah. It's not like the cops are still on duty and they're on administrative leave. They were fired.
Yeah, fairly immediately.
How much it takes for a cop to get fired nowadays? They got fired, not administrative leave.
Especially in a heavy union state like Minnesota.
Yeah, and in very government-centered Minnesota and Minneapolis, where our old friend.
Now, the interesting part that I read today, that maybe, I don't know if you saw this or not. This is the 3rd person this cop has killed.
What?
He shot.
How is he still?
He shot 2 people. And wait till you hear the name of the person who refused to prosecute him on either of those trials.
Was it Ilhan Omar?
It was Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So, listen, and Luke's pointing out, people have been calling for murder charges on the police. He says he personally agrees given the nature of their profession. Thoughts?
I've been on record multiple times today that the cop who had his knee on his throat or knee on the back of his neck, murder 1. The cops that are around him and didn't stop him from doing it or prevent him from killing him, they're either going to get murder 2 or accessory to the charge. They might plead out something of that nature. But the gentleman who killed him is going to get murder 1. There's no...
So I personally
the nature of it, their profession is what it is, but they had him subdued, and they had him subdued for 9 minutes. If it was like a minute and this shit happened, maybe he get off on technicality. This was 9 minutes of the gentleman going, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. People in the crowd saying he can't breathe. There's blood coming out of his nose. He's obviously subdued. Let him up. It took a firefighter of all people coming up to him and saying, dude, you're killing him. And then it was too late.
Yeah. So I'm going to differ from you here just a little bit. Now, I definitely think he's in the wrong. I definitely think he should face criminal charges. But I'm going to say that most likely for me, it's a manslaughter charge. And the reason for that was his intent to kill him. Murder requires intent. Manslaughter does not require intent. Manslaughter just requires that you created the conditions for the event to occur. So we see drunk drivers who, hit a car and kill them. They didn't intend to kill a person. They didn't go out of their way to kill a person. That's not what they set out to do. That wasn't their intent. But the reality is that what's occurred, they created those conditions for it to occur. So for me, I personally think if they want to get a for sure conviction, they go for manslaughter or maybe murder 2, murder 3. Because murder 1, you're gonna have to prove intent there. And
okay, yeah. So I wasn't of the. I did, but I didn't realize that murder 1. I'd forgotten that murder 1 included intent. So with that revised evidence coming to light, yeah, murder 2 or manslaughter. But let's face facts here. This gentleman will have to face he'll have to face reckoning. Otherwise, what's happening now is going to get tenfold. the righteous protest that where they began at, the righteous protest, just showing up to the police department and no justice, no peace. That's fine. That's great, and that's what they should be doing. But the rioting and the looting, if this gentleman is found not guilty on some technicality, Minneapolis is going to burn.
Yeah. So we've already seen burning. They burned down a Target. They burned down an AutoZone.
I'm not saying like a couple little fires.
No. I understand. I understand.
Burn.
There's a lot of stuff. So there's a very big argument happening right now over what is lawful protest and what is. So I had some guys today who are fairly left that I've actually come to discuss a lot of things on Twitter with, and they go, but you're a conservative, you should stand for the First Amendment and their right to protest. I said, I stand for their right to protest. I have no issues with their right to protest, but it goes back to the old adage, I can swing my fist as much as I want as long as I don't come into contact with your face. You don't have a right to destroy somebody else's property as a means of that protest. When you stretch that protest into harming another person physically, which there was a death last night that's being investigated, so we had one person killed that we're rioting over. Now we've killed somebody else in the process of rioting over that. Once the protest became a riot, that's when the issue occurred. Once it said it's time for us to burn down and steal TVs from a Target, and people, the argument was, oh, well, that Target has insurance. They'll get the money back. But that's not a simple argument, right? Because yes, that Target has insurance. They're going to get paid, but they're going to have deductibles here. They're going to have to pay some money out of pocket. They're going to lose money.
And they hire and employ people of the community. It's not like they're, getting people from St. Paul to come work at the Minneapolis Target. Not saying they wouldn't, but they're not, or they're probably not. People from Minneapolis are working in that Target. People are getting paychecks. They're being able to then take that paycheck and spend it in the rest of the community. They burnt down a affordable housing project. Those were going to be, livable homes for somebody. And now they're gone. They'll get rebuilt. Don't get me wrong, but it's extra time, extra patience that people are going to have, because now instead of a house being ready in the next month or two, it's going to take several months. 6 to 7 months before these houses are now ready. You can't just snap your fingers and housing is ready overnight. So that's lost in all of this, is that, you're just hurting yourself. You're literally hurting your own community.
Yeah, you're burning your own house down to prove a point. So you're only hurting yourself, right? Yeah, your point may be proven, but who's harmed at the end of the day is you, right? And although I don't like some of the rhetoric that's coming out, there's other sides of this that are, look, there's some correctness to what like Candace Owens is saying. Now, I don't like the rhetoric she's using. I don't like the wording she's using, because it is indicative of a culture war. But she is correct in a few stances here. Number one, the left was looking for a race war to start. They were seeking a race war. Number two, this helps distract from what looks to be positive economic indicators on the horizon. So we're seeing a lot of things where, Jamie Dimon of Goldman Sachs has come out and said he expects a very fast recovery. Even the Democrat reports on the economy says they expect a really quick recovery. But everybody says the longer we can hold people shut, the longer the recovery will take, right? It's an exponential growth curve once we start talking from how long we're shut down. So, for every week we shut down, it's like, to the power of 2, how long the recovery will take. So the faster we can get up and moving, the faster the recovery will come. And Democrats want to delay this to a point where the recovery won't have happened before November. Because again, as we've talked about, they want to take away the cudgel that President Trump has, which is he has been one of the best presidents economically we've had for a long time because of his removing of a lot of different regulations on a lot of different industries that have allowed those industries to flourish because of going after China and forcing them to play a little bit more fairly. I'm not going to say he's made them play fair, but at least made them play a little more fairly. And after renegotiating NAFTA and creating the USMCA, which brought some jobs back to the United States there, The Dems are looking to get rid of that argument and make it null. And actually, they've done a decent job with some people in the media of saying now it's Trump that owns this part of it, when it's the left states that have really closed down. It's the left states that have really taken the worst economic hits. But, of course, two of those states, New York and California, make up a large section of the GDP in our country. A lot of industry goes through those two states, the financial sector being in New York, and then, of course, shipping and receiving there in California, and then, of course, also tech being in California. So there's a large segment of our economy that does run through those two states, and because of that, it's making a lot of what we're having happen right now look even worse.
So there's two things here that the media has not really hit on or really talked about. And the first is like, where was all of the condemnation and the you're killing grandmas at the protest last night, because they were not social distancing, they were not wearing, not a lot of them were wearing masks. Most of them were out there without masks, were out there, shoulder to shoulder in protest. And don't get me wrong, I think they should have been. And that's what they should be doing, is doing a righteous protest. That's the line. Righteous protest, shoulder to shoulder, showing defiance. Cool, great. But you didn't hear anything about coronavirus last night. That like it magically disappeared overnight because of this. So, but are they giving Trump another cudgel? Because Trump's team snapped to on this and ordered the DOJ to investigate it.
Yeah.
So if the DOJ comes back and says manslaughter, murder 1, finds him guilty, puts him away, does the black community go, holy shit, Trump actually listened to our pleas, sent the federal government to investigate this, did not let the local government bury it and let it disappear, but sent the federal government to investigate this for corruption, whatever it may be, because there was some corruption in this. That kind of gets you did hear about it a little bit, but it's not at the forefront as it should have been. If the Trump DOJ comes in and finds this man guilty and the local municipality guilty because of the cover-up they attempted to try to do, because the original police report said, and this is what I was hitting at, the original police report said they took him to the hospital for, signs of distress and stuff of that nature. Did not mention anything about what they had done to the gentleman to cause those distress, to cause those medical issues to arise. So if the Trump DOJ comes out and, they can find that police report is obviously false, obviously falsified, and can get them on that, and then get the gentleman who actually perpetrated the crime by not lifting his knee up and allowing the gentleman to breathe, gain air, then the Trump administration is going to gain a lot of fervor and a lot more fervor and a lot more favor amongst the black community, because he took action and he and his government actually stood up for them for the first time in however many years, since the Rodney King things went down way back when.
We had this argument Friday night Comfy Post with Luke, and I'm kind of under the opinion at this point that there's very little voters left to go get at this point. I think that we're so
this might turn the tide, though.
We're so polarized in this country as far as politics, right? That at this point in time, if you don't, maybe 5% of the voting populace doesn't know whether they plan to vote for Biden or Trump. I think that probably 45-45 Trump to, hey Luke, good night. Thanks for staying up for as long as you did, because it is late there. But have a good night, and try to get some rest. But I'm not certain that does this maybe bring some independence or some of those people that were on the line, with what's going on? Does that have a chance there? Yes, but could it have the opposite effect? I think it could as well. And I think that's what we have to be careful for, because we've already seen Maxine Waters come out and say, oh, this is Trump's fault. Trump created this. This is, and Herschel Walker, who, he didn't get there on fourth down, but he got there today or yesterday, pointed out that that the Rice case, that all these other cases happened under Obama, that they didn't happen under President Trump. So why all of a sudden is this murder, which, okay, this murder is bad, and most likely I think this is manslaughter, because, again, I don't believe the cop had the intent to kill the person. But there's got to be a lot of questions asked here. Number one, this police officer had killed 2 people prior. How was he not already removed from the force? What were those cases? We'll have to find more out about that, right? And there's evidence there that may or may not come out. Maybe he was completely justified in those 2 shootings. But we don't know that right now, and chances are that maybe he wasn't completely justified and maybe he should have. And we know that they're saying Amy Klobuchar refused to prosecute. That hints that it wasn't a completely clean killing, right? Because typically there's not even a question of prosecution in a case where the officer was clearly within his right to take the shot. But this one, of course, looks a lot worse because, like you hinted at, 9 minutes. You don't suffocate a guy in a couple of seconds. This guy suffered. This guy was in agonizing pain and knew he was dying. And this happened in public. There were people
in broad daylight.
People standing around watching and witnessing this occur. And
the one time that you see the people that are videotaping it and surrounding him try to do something to help him, the cop pulls mace out and like puts his knee down harder. I'm like, dude, it's what? So, what trip are you on that you feel that this is necessary? What kind of power trip are you on that you have to do this? Yeah, maybe the dude got a swing in and hit you, but even then, that doesn't justify 9 minutes of torture.
Yeah. So again, I think intent becomes important here. Did the cop know that he was killing him? Did he just think the guy was pulling a line, trying to get out of it so he could get up and run? What happened there? Those are and that's going to be hard to prove one way or the other, right? Because intent's always the hardest part to prove, right? To prove that somebody meant to do something is very hard because only that person knows for certain whether he meant or did not mean to do something. So the prosecution's going to have a hard time because other than this, right? Other than this, it didn't look like an unroutine. He wasn't slapping the guy. He wasn't telling him he's going to kill him. He wasn't doing anything like that. So other than that, it looked like a routine incident, except the placement of his knee. Now, do I think he should go to jail for the placement of his knee? I do, because I think what he did is he created the environment for this to occur. And I don't believe the intent is there, which is important, the mens rea, right? But I do believe that he created the conditions. So, but back to the riots, back to the insurance line, because people keep saying, oh, insurance will take care of these buildings. Another unforeseen part of this is that these guys, their insurance rates are going to go up. It's going to make it so expensive for them to do business in these areas because of the chances of recurring riots next year on the anniversary and other things that, as we've seen in a lot of these neighborhoods, and we've seen in Detroit, we've seen in Chicago, we've seen in LA, that they don't get rebuilt. The businesses don't come back, right? Yes, the businesses get taken care of on the other end by insurance, and they don't take that big of a loss. But they choose not to rebuild in these neighborhoods because it's not worth it to them to pay the addition. They're already operating at very low margins, like a Target. Targets operate at very low margins, right? AutoZone might make a slightly higher margin, and they may come back, but that's a pretty small business compared to a Target, right? What an AutoZone's going to do in revenue monthly versus what a Target's going to do in revenue daily is significantly different. So Target's going to employ a lot more people. Target's going to have a lot more people going. And then on top of that, they burned down an apartment complex, a 5-story apartment complex that was affordable housing. They literally put people out of their homes that probably were similar to them.
I mean, it wasn't completed yet. Like I actually touched on that earlier.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I touched on that earlier. It wasn't completed yet. So, but it's in the process of being built. Like I said, these people that were looking forward to having housing in the next month or two, and don't put me on blast if I'm wrong, if it was a month or two. Regardless of how long it was going to take them to move in, move that out to the right, and by the right I mean extend the length by 3-4 months, because now they have to start over. because
Oh,
whatever the fire
for a
touched,
building that size, you're talking.
yeah,
You're talking a year to build something of that size. You
and
know.
that's housing that people could have lived in
Mm-hmm.
and had a roof over their heads. It may not have been the nicest, but it beat the fuck out of the street.
It beats that. And you know what? Some people just getting that opportunity to have a house, to have somewhere to live, it starts them on a path to something really good. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but for some people it does. And especially if they have children. Right now, instead of their children bouncing from place to place to place to place and never having that structure, never having that ability to grow up in one school or get to know their teachers or anything like this, now those kids would have had a home, somewhere to go every day, somewhere to be, and home is big for kids. That's where memories occur. That's where they build their camaraderie with their friends and their neighborhoods, and they get a sense of pride for the things around them and try to make them better. That's a big thing for a lot of people nowadays. And unfortunately, like you said, now they're going to be out of this. Who knows how long? Who knows how long it takes to get this rebuilt? But also, we're not going to start rebuilding it until all this crap is over.
Yeah,
So,
that definitely, and that and the COVID shit too.
so
This housing stuff has just been put on the back burner, and now it's going to be even put further back. So yeah, these people, the children that would have lived there, the families that would have lived there, even if it was just a single male or a single female, no longer have the ability to do so for the next 6 months to a year because someone thought it was a good idea to throw a fire into it, and that's sad, man. They're
well, and
like I said, they're,
like we saw in Ferguson, Missouri, a lot of these people that are looting and rioting right now, they're not the people from these communities. They're coming into these communities to do it because they see an opportunity for them to gain, right? We saw that in Ferguson. They had a lady was looting a liquor store, and they asked her, "What do you think about the events?" And, "Oh, I don't care. I just came here to get free liquor. Right? I knew there would be free liquor. I knew I'd have a chance at free liquor. I came here to get it." "Well, where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from X and X." "Are you from here?" "No, I'm not from here." These people, if you're in this community, realize that the people that are doing this stuff, if you are part of what they're doing, they're not there to help you. They're there to tear you down to their level. They're there to make your situation worse and make their situation better. Okay?
one thing I did see though that gave me a little bit of hope was you did see uh, armed citizens come out from the other areas of the town or the community, or even the ones I saw. They said they were rednecks with guns. They came up and they helped guard
I saw
the
that video too,
facilities
yeah.
because they knew that if it became a riot, that they were going to be needed because the cops were going to be too busy. They were simply just helping out their neighbors to ensure that they didn't suffer any consequences as far as, destruction. And, the one death that I heard about was, a business owner shooting someone that was trying to break into his property to loot it. You know, you see gun control in the places where the people are the most downtrodden, not where people are, happy and prosperous, because they know that if you give people the ability to protect themselves, they're going to do so. But if you strip them of that right, that makes them more malleable to your will. That, take their guns away, take their ability to defend themselves away, and now you can entice them with a little bit of money, welfare, uh, to do your bidding for you. You can get them to become your voting block.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this last week when Biden made his gaffe. But this with Trump's DOJ doing this, I honestly think that you're going to see the Brexit movement start really churning, because a lot more people in the black community are starting to wake up and realize I'm being taken for granted. They're just assuming I'm going to vote for them. They don't actually come out and try to earn my vote. They're just assuming I'm going to vote for them because they say I will. So the black community is starting to say, enough is enough. You need to earn our vote. And if Trump's DOJ comes in and finds these police officers guilty and gets them charged and get them put away, there's a real chance here for Trump administration, for the conservative movement to actually get some movement amongst the black community and win these people over, because they're actually standing up for them. Not just lip service, but they're actually standing up for them, actually trying to help their communities.
So one thing we have seen, and it's weird that this is the call coming out. So Madonna come out and has said that F the police, essentially, which if you're a police officer and you were working security at one of Madonna's shows, she said F you. So, you know what? You don't have to stay. You can leave. But the other side of that is she then called for gun control, which is, again, counterproductive to the argument, because two things here. Number one, this wasn't gun violence at all. This has nothing to do with gun violence. It's a tragedy. It doesn't make it any less so of a tragedy. But he wasn't shot. There was no guns involved. To my knowledge, the police officer never unholstered his pistol. Now, she's now calling for gun violence. The exact point here is that, as you said, with the two rednecks that were out there policing the area, usually armed civilians are more likely to de-escalate a situation than to escalate a situation. We saw in Michigan, when they went after the governor's office with guns, and all the left freaked out. They're in the Capitol with guns. Not one person was shot. A weapon wasn't raised. They came, they went, they said their piece. It was a peaceful protest. Were they armed? Yes. Did they shoot anybody? No. If you're on the argument here that this is an example of institutional racism, or this is an example of, cops run amok, then the argument of letting yourself be weaponized so that you can defend yourself against the government, against the tyranny, against the oppressor, makes a lot of sense here. The argument that, we need to further take away the ability of our populace to defend themselves, therefore making the police officers more likely to be able to commit these kinds of acts again because they don't have anybody taking them and putting them to task, that doesn't make any sense. So it's back to the argument about institutional racism. If you think there's institutional racism, if you believe in that, if you believe that our government is built to keep minorities down and keep them from being able to work and keep them, then the conservative movement should be your home. Because what we're telling you is,
if nothing else, the Second Amendment should be your favorite, because the only way that you're going to be able to overthrow your oppressors is to be as well, if not better armed than they are. If you are going out silent like a lamb and not standing up to the oppressors, then you are just going to keep getting oppressed over and over and over again. But if you have the ability to stand up and defend yourself, and you have the ability to rightfully carry a weapon, then the cops are going to at least be a little bit more tentative towards you, because they know there's a chance that you could overthrow them. Now, most gun owners are very respectful of law enforcement and are very appreciative of them. Yeah. But the reason there is because they know at the end of the day, if the cops ever come trying to do anything nefarious, they have the ability to defend themselves. They have the ability to rebuff them. So it's that mutual respect, because like when we did with Russia during the Cold War, we mutually kept building up arms. The U.S. didn't back down and let Russia just keep building nukes over and over. Yes. I did a very good job of suppressing that. You're welcome. Oh, well, I tried. We kept up with them, and they had to respect us because of it. They couldn't overrun us because we had just as much, if not more,
mutually assured destruction.
Exactly. So the cops know that they can't just come into people's houses out in the country, because it's mutually assured destruction. But in the inner cities where the gun control is there, then they can just run rampant because they don't have anything to fear.
So again, the point goes back to, right, if you think that the government was meant and designed to be racist, which Kyle and I personally don't, because what we think is the government was designed to allow everybody, regardless of race, creed, color, to be able to make it on their own. Now, are there people who have fallen through the cracks? Of course. Have there been bad actors that have been part of the government? Of course. Have, Joe Biden. But the point is that in today's day and age, the free market would do more to bring about equality than the government will ever have a chance to, because the government doesn't have power to create equality. The government can only make one person better than another. That's all they can do. They don't have the ability to look at me and tell me that Kyle is my equal, right? What they have is they can say, well, Ross, you're doing worse off than Kyle, so to make you equal, we're going to give you a benefit we don't give Kyle, which is only going to create more resentment in that relationship, which is all it's ever done. We've seen this with affirmative action. All affirmative action did was give all the racists an excuse. That's all it did. It didn't really help out very many black people, because black people were already getting a chance to go to college and there was already options there. What it did is it gave all the white people an excuse to go, well, that guy only got to school because of affirmative action. He didn't actually get here because he's good or because he did stuff that was great or he deserved it or it was merit-based. When we go back and look at it, merit-based meritocracy is going to be the only real way to have freedom, right? Because unless you believe, and you fundamentally believe, that black people are not as smart as white people, that Asians are better are smarter than us but worse drivers. Well, if you believe in these things, then you think there needs to be government action to correct it, to correct for it. But if you don't believe any of those talks, if you don't believe that black people are worse than white people, if you don't believe that Mexicans are lazy or stuff like this, then you don't believe that they need government intervention to better their lives. I think that I went to school with lots of black people that were just as smart as me. I was in my MBA program. There was a lot of black people. I'd have long, nuanced conversations with them. There was no issues in their intellectual ability. They didn't get into school because they were black. They got into school because they were smart and because they had done good work. I work with a lot of Hispanic people. I work with a lot of Hispanic people that are super hardworking, that will outwork 90% of your workforce in a heartbeat and are happy to do it. So the question becomes, who is really being racist here? Is the person that thinks everybody is equal and should get a chance to work equally and fail and succeed equally? Because if that's the person that's racist, then racism needs to be redefined. Because the person who believes that someone is inferior, therefore needs the government's help to succeed, that's the person who's racist in my eyes.
Yes, the soft racism of lowered expectation.
Exactly.
That is the real sentiment. But like I was hitting at, like in the military, we both served in the military. We both served with people of all creed, colors, and religions. And
I had a guy with a Darth Vader. I mean, he was.
I had somebody who was a Jedi. That was their belief. They literally believed that they were a Jedi. And I didn't care because he was a good guy.
Yep, doesn't really matter.
Weird, but he thought I was weird. And to be honest, I am. I don't care.
You are.
I'm very weird, but I'm very happy that I'm weird because the normal people scare the shit out of me. People that claim to be normal are the ones that like go on psychotic rants and go out and kill things and people. Those are the people you gotta be worried about, man. The people that embrace their weirdness and enjoy being weird, those are the ones you can go have a beer with because they don't give a fuck. Those are the ones you want to be with. Those are the ones you want to have conversations with. See their point of view, because I guarantee you it's going to be interesting, if nothing else. You're going to get a good sermon or lecture or whatever it is. You're going to have fun if you're open to the possibility. So speaking of bars, did you see what happened last night at the Chicken?
I heard the roof caved in.
The roof caved in, man. The gutter or something clogged up.
On fire.
The roof was on the floor. But luckily,
not funny for the people who own the Chicken, I'm certain.
No, but they're gonna be okay. Let's face facts.
They have insurance.
But luckily, Sneaky Snake is okay.
Okay.
Thank God, Sneaky Snake is okay.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm assuming it's a bar that's also on the Northgate Strip.
No, the chicken has a live rattlesnake in the back. You've been there.
I've been there many times, and I've carved my name into it. And I don't, see the S on the hat? I'm not.
I know you've been there. You should remember that there's a snake. That's one of the things of it that brings about its charm.
I remember they have adequately decent hamburgers and beer. That's really the charm of the place. It's adequately decent hamburgers. You can take out a knife and carve your name into any table you're at, and it's actually encouraged. And they have beer. So, and pool tables. I do remember the pool tables.
And dominoes.
I do remember that stuff, but I don't, I wasn't really paying attention to whether there was a snake. I don't. Okay, great. The snake is alive. Could they have never found another snake? How would they have ever done?
It's just the fact that he didn't get hurt.
Okay, great. PETA will be happy. So let's move from one weirdo to another, because I don't know if you watched much of the Memorial Day services that were held throughout the country. President Trump laying the wreath at the grave of the unknown soldier.
I did a Memorial Day for me. I scheduled a post for our Facebook page like 4 days in advance. Memorial Day for me was a day of remembrance and social media blackout, to include news. Like I didn't.
I
watched Netflix all day.
Part of my Memorial Day every year is watching the laying of the wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier.
I watched that Tuesday.
So that's President Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, and then whoever the chief of staff is at the moment. They go to the tomb of the unknown soldier. They lay a wreath. That is, the tomb of the unknown soldier. For those of you who are unaware or not completely initiated, it's for all of the soldiers who have died and who've not come home, regardless of who they are, their face, whatever. It's at Arlington National Cemetery, and it's a big monument. It's guarded 24/7 by U.S. Army soldiers who are there in full military regalia, mind you. They are 100% dressed to the hilt, and they carry very specific orders to guard that with their life.
They are the top of the top of the top of the top members of the military.
Yes.
Like 300 PT, perfect PT scores. Pass every test, flying colors. They are the highest, caliber soldier that you can think of. Mm-hmm. And they is it a full year that they
I think it
sign
is.
on for?
It's 1 year.
They're not allowed to talk at all.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure if it's
rain,
on duty or in general.
Rain, snow, sleet, shine. It doesn't matter. They stand out there. They do the job. They guard that.
They march back and forth. It's a very somber, solemn task. It's only the super elite get to do it. I know a gentleman who did it. Gentleman owns Good Bull Barbecue here in town. He's a former Yale leader, Roy May. Roy, if you're watching, love to have you on the show, buddy, to talk about this. It's a very prestigious thing. If you have been one of these soldiers, that means you were the cat's nine, man. You were the shit.
So I watched President Trump lay the wreath there, and of course, they play taps, and it's a somber moment. The president salutes the tomb, and it's a thank you to all the men and women who have come before us and who have lost their lives and bared their lives. And it's very symbolic, but it's a very nice gesture done every year by every president. So President Obama did it, President Clinton, President Bush, every president before him has laid a wreath there at the tomb of the unknown soldier since its inception. So I watched that, and then they cut to former Vice President Joe Biden doing his version of it at the Delaware State Cemetery. And he's bringing a wreath, but instead, former Vice President Biden is wearing a mask because he's trying to virtue signal about the coronavirus, right? He can't just make this about what the day is about, right? Because the day is not about coronavirus or fear. The day is about remembrance of the men and women who had no fear, who took on the scariest things that they could have taken on, which is their own mortality, and faced it head on and paid the price for doing so, but were willing to do it because they appreciated what the country stood for. Whether and I put this out on Twitter. It's not about whether or not you agree with the current president. It's not about whether you agree with everything this country's ever done. It's what you agree that the country could be. That the country is an opportunity for greatness. That people have opportunities here, that people have that chance, and that you believe in that ideal. You believe in that possibility, that you're willing to serve your life. For anybody who thinks, oh, the military is only for poor people who can't afford anything else, first of all, that's racist of you to believe, because we have a large percentage of our military is made up of minority people who are doing so for various reasons, but they're also doing it. And I would believe that their primary reason is patriotism, is loyalty to the country, is belief in the ideal, belief in the ability of this country to be the greater good, whether that's in another country, whether that's here at home, wherever it is, that the country has stood for those ideals. But the thing that really...
And that's just, and to be honest with you, like, if you really believe that, then do you understand what an officer is? An officer is a college-educated lady or gentleman who's gone through at least 4 years of education, ROTC or OCS training, gathered a bachelor's of science or arts, and then gone through officer training school to become an officer. So these aren't the dumb people. These are the people who are college educated becoming leaders of men and women. So to say that is very racist or very judgmental, because these people have given up at least 4 years of their life to protect you. And they do so because they want to. No one put a gun to their head. No one made them join. They saw an opportunity to better their lives and they took it. But the people who did so after college are doing so for the same exact reasons. There's no difference for being an officer, being enlisted, other than you've been college educated. That is the only difference between an officer and enlisted. And to say that the officers are the same as the enlisted, I mean, that's just very judgy, very stupid, very bad take in general. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I watched former Vice President Joe Biden as he walked up to whatever monument they have there at the Delaware. I don't know. I don't know what the monument's called. So he walks up, he lays the wreath, he gives a half-assed, real quick salute, which is like dipshit right there, right? It made me want to slap him just for that, because he walks up and does that. Like, I didn't want anybody to see me do it, but I had to do it because some people might be mad that I didn't do it. So I gave a half-ass one so that I can appease everybody that might be watching this. So that's not how you render a salute at all. If you're going to render a salute, then you render the damn salute. You do it correctly. You do it properly. You make sure your pose and your poise are correct, and you do it the right way. You know, if you're there to pay respects, don't do some half-ass crap like that. But the other great thing I really noticed about it, his mask was on wrong the whole time.
How was he wearing it?
So he was wearing it over his face, but he had his ear folded over like this because he had one of the ones that goes over your ear. And he had it so far out on his ear that it was making him do like this on his ears. And it was, I'm not going to lie, it was quite comical. It was hard to take him.
Was he at least covering his nose as well as his mouth?
Because it did appear to be.
That's the thing that makes me laugh so hard, is when I go to like the local grocery stores and the people are grocery shopping with their mask on but only covering their mouth. I'm just like, I really want to go up to them and say, you know that the fact that you're wearing a mask doesn't protect you at all, but the fact that you're not covering your nose eliminates all benefits that you would get from it.
So I'm sending you the picture now. And the other side of it is he's wearing black aviator shades in the picture.
Wow.
Right? Like, this is not a guy who it looks like a guy who's too cool for school.
Since you have the ability to do it on the stream, why don't you go ahead and put it up on the stream for everybody else to see?
I will, real quick. Let me get that going. I'll get it on the stream here in just a second. But former Vice President Biden has now come out, and he's on this big kick that everybody needs to have their mask on. That's the big thing, right? Because if you don't have your mask on, you can't possibly be a good person in a civilized society, which is
Did you see
Horseshit.
Did you see Alyssa Milano's virtue
The
signal?
crocheted mask.
I'm like, you understand the holes in those crochets are big enough for like a penny to get through, more or less, the coronavirus. Come on, girl.
Yeah.
If you're gonna virtue signal, at least do it half-assedly right.
So it is pretty funny, but as Kyle just alluded to, the CDC has now come back out and said, look, masks are probably not going to do you any good. It's probably more of a comfort thing than it is anything else. So you're probably not really helping yourself, because it takes prolonged exposure to be able to actually get anywhere when it comes to the coronavirus. You're not going to get coronavirus by just meeting somebody, by just looking them in the face one time. It takes a 20 to 30 minute period of you breathing in their saliva in order for it to be transmitted. But
Yeah.
we can talk about the places that we know people were breathing in that air for long consecutive points of time, because those are the places that the Democrats put COVID-19 patients, which is assisted living and nursing homes, which now make up over 40% of our nation's deaths have come from assisted living nursing homes.
We had a big spike here locally in Bryan College Station, and it all came from one, like, not all of it, but like 90% of the spike, if not more, came from one individual assisted living home. So it's like we had like 50 new cases pop up, but like of those 50, 48 were from this house, from this assisted living facility. Luckily, there was only one new death. So, thank God only one person died, and they didn't say if it was from this facility or not, just that, one more person died here in the Brazos County. And yeah, it's horrendous what they've done. And then now they're trying to scapegoat anything and everything and everybody, and especially Trump, to say it was his fault.
Okay, so I'm now going to put this on the screen here for just a second. Who knows? Maybe this was something, but there was a report that on his website, and I'll go to it now, and if I do find it, I'll put it on the screen, that he had said that on his website that if you vote for Joe Biden, you get to keep your black card.
Oh, dear God. He is pandering so hard.
That's all he has.
And I don't think he understands how offensive he's being. It's wow. Is dementia really setting in? I know people like to say that the gas that he has is because he has a stuttering issue, but I'm starting to think there's a little bit more to it than just stuttering, because I can stutter and still make eloquent phrasing, and the gentleman just can't, like, mispronouncing stuff, saying completely wrong things, trying to take away an AR-14, stuff like that. Just, it doesn't make any sense. And the gentleman is just, I'm starting to believe Luke and Russ's conspiracy theory that he's the presumptive winner of the primaries, but he's not going to be running for president in 2020.
So I don't currently see that on the website. Now that doesn't mean
it wasn't there.
It wasn't there at some point. It also could have been a Babylon Bee kind of thing I saw, and I didn't see where it was from.
Yeah. Well, the sad thing is the Babylon Bee stuff is starting to get to the point where
it seems real.
it could be real. You're like, ugh. Back in the day, it was very obvious that this was satire. Nowadays, you're just like, shit, is that just tomorrow's headline that hasn't actually happened yet?
So I'm looking at this right now, and I'm trying to go through the statistics here, and I'm trying to see, I guess, the different colors. Okay, it doesn't tell me what. Okay, there it is. Okay, there it is. There it is. There it is. Oh no, that's by age. So percentage
What's
of
my age again? What's
yeah
my age again?
age for active duty army. Okay, active duty army by branch and race, ethnicity. So commissioned officer. Blacks make up 24% of operations, 14% of operation support, 29% of force sustainment, and 32% of other. Uh, Whites are 41, so 13, 13, and 33. So the only ones that whites significantly outpace blacks are in operations. Operation support, blacks are every minority is higher than white. Force sustainment, every minority is higher than white, and other white is only 1 percentage point higher than black. It is which races of the army to put Asian in, or no, it's Hispanic that's in yellow. Okay, I was gonna say that's kind of racist of them to put Hispanic, Asian in yellow, but so in operations, 37% is Hispanic, 16% in operations support, 21% in force sustainment, and 26% in others. So if you had all that up, whites are not they don't have they have a plurality in some of these, but they're not the majority, right? That if the minorities all banded together, they would be the majority there, which is fine. Great that these guys are able to come in. And it's sad that when we look at the enlisted ranks, actually a larger percentage is made up of white people in the enlisted ranks than that's made up in the officer ranks. So in operations, which is 40% of overall enlisted force, 50% are white, whereas only 41% are white in the commissioned corps. 14% in the operations support, only 13% in the commissioned corps. 17% in force sustainment, only 13% in the commissioned corps, and 18% in the enlisted, 33% in the officer corps. So that's the other section, which I don't know what it's putting in the other sections. That's the only place where significantly larger portion of the force is white than it is in the enlisted forces.
So I've experienced racism in my life, like not against me, but like towards my friends. But I think the most racist thing I've ever been a part of was when I was in the army, and it had nothing to do with the army. Well, it kind of did. One of my black friends and I went to the med call, and I was sick, so I was going to med call. I don't remember what for or anything of that nature, but I didn't want to go. They sent me, and in training, you can't go anywhere without a battle buddy. So my battle buddy Jackson and I went down to the thing, the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, med call, sick call, med call, whatever you want to call it.
He's a sick call ranger.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was trying to avoid, that perception. So I didn't want to go if I didn't have to. But I went in there. We sat in line. Took a couple hours. Finally got back to the office, and the doctor comes in, sees my buddy, and goes, "Oh, are you here for a shaving profile?" And we both just looked at him and went, "Are you fucking serious right now?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, black people do experience a lot worse issues when it comes to shaving. But if you look at the chart, the last name said Schumann. My name tag says Schumann. His name tag says Jackson. Your chart says Schumann. Just a little bit of context, and you'd have been like, "Oh, okay, Mr. Schumann, what are we here for today?"
Mm-hmm.
But no, takes one look at my black buddy and goes, "Oh, we here for a shaving profile."
Yeah,
that's probably the most racist thing I've ever been a part of in my life.
All right, so
and I hope that's the worst I ever see for the remainder of my life.
So I'm fairly certain that Joe Biden is about as racist a man as they come, and you're not going to convince me otherwise at this point. Again, do I think that we're going to see any jump amongst the supporters of Joe Biden to call him racist? I don't think we're going to see that much. We would have seen it already, right? But again, I think this is, like you said, there are those independents that we're just taking away weapons. We're taking away arrows out of his quiver at this point. He can call Trump sexist. We know he's as sexist as Trump is, at least. He's at least no less sexist than Trump is, and quite possibly much more. Because give it to Trump whatever you want to say, right? All of the people who have come out and have credibly accused Trump of sexual endeavors with him have all said it was consensual. Nobody has come out and said that it was, forcibly. There have been people who have done so, but none of those have been proven credible, and all of them have kind of been washed under the rug. Otherwise, you'd hear the media just spouting off about him every 30 seconds. There's people on Twitter who believe it, and that's fine for those people. But in real life, probably not, right? So we know Joe Biden has at least been very inappropriate with women, if not predatory against women. He
and
is
children.
For all the people who want to say that President Trump is racist, well, Joe Biden is at least as racist or more racist.
He's the worst racist there's ever been.
I
I
agree.
Record low black unemployment, record funding for HBCUs. If he was racist, the black community would be at the
thing that gets washed in that conversation about the ACBUs is that this is the first time that it's been a multi-year deal. Usually it's year to year. Usually they have to go back to Congress and pander every year. And one of the presidents said, one of the university presidents came out and said, this is the first time we've gotten a deal where we actually know what our budgets are going to be for like the next 10 years, where we're not having to worry that Congress can't find funding for us next year. So again, this is where President Trump has done something great for the country. I'm not quite certain why you sexually caressed your...
Oh, it wasn't caressing. It was demonstrating that soon there's going to be something here.
Ah, okay.
I've got a deal in place with a local manufacturer. We're going to get some logos printed up and made, or not just our logo printed up, but actually made into a decal. So, and we've got a new phrase that we're gonna once we get them made, we'll go ahead and reveal the phrase, unless you want to do so now.
Yeah, we've revealed the first section of it, but we'll wait. We'll tease that for the next episode. I'm not certain that Biden's not racist, but there's let's move on to a couple other topics we have today. So we have to look at a couple other things which just happened yesterday, which was the proxy vote that happened in the House, the first time ever that voting has been allowed in the House by proxy. And also, our old friend Chip Roy managed to get his bill passed, which is the modification of the PPP plan to give those companies more time to spend that money, that they don't have to spend it so quickly that they can hold off and wait longer times to spend it, which gives restaurants and restaurateurs more confidence that they're not going to violate the terms of the agreement to be able to get the grant, to be able to turn the loan into a grant. So this was a bipartisan piece of legislation that Chip Roy had with a Democrat from Minnesota, and it passed fairly overwhelmingly. Of course, there's the vitriol on Twitter for Chip Roy, because there's people who think, just by the nature that he's a Republican, that automatically means that certain things about him. We, of course, know that not to be true, and we appreciate that Representative Roy went to bat and fought on a program that needed to be worked on. Is the PPP...
And he showed up in person?
And he showed up in person and made a nice speech about...
And he represented his constituents in person?
Yeah, he earned his paycheck. Let's put it that way. So, unlike, let's say, a Dem rep out of Florida who sent a letter to the House saying that he couldn't show up and was proxy voting because of a grave medical emergency, but then was seen at the possible SpaceX launch the same day. So he had a grave medical emergency that required him to go to a NASA launch. It would have been a medical
emergency if he had missed it. He'd have not been able to get his head out of his ass had he missed that launch.
So that's another story that has been buried. This will be the first time in, 20-something years that we've launched an astronaut from the United States of America?
It didn't happen.
It didn't, but it's scheduled for Saturday now.
Saturday.
Yeah, it's scheduled for Saturday. It will happen. Whether they may postpone it a few more times, who knows, weather permitting, the launch will occur. And again, it will be the first time in a very long time that the United States of America has launched an astronaut into space. And for all the people who say, well, NASA's this great thing, this is exactly the opposite. NASA was so over budget with every project that we stopped allowing them to launch, and that SpaceX, Elon Musk, has come out and figured out how to do it economically by reusing the boosters, and therefore we're at a point where we can afford to send our own astronauts to space. Is this a huge thing coming to terms with national security? Probably not. But is it great that our country can now have the pride of watching our achievements, the achievements of our companies and of our engineers and of our people, make these achievements and send our own people into space without having to rely on what for many, many, many years was a adversary on this world stage, and even is quite considered an adversary today in Russia. So this is the first time we'll be able to launch our own people. And I'm just so happy because, again, this is for all the people who say, well, the post office would be great if we just give them $100 billion a year. Again, FedEx and UPS exist, right? And if the post office goes out of business,
DHL and there's like 30 other companies that do it, but not on a national scale.
If the post office goes out of business, somebody else will fill the void, right, of cheap postal carrying. They may not carry packages.
UPS might as well go ahead and do so. Everyone gets them confused anyway.
So if they, there's a federal law that says that carrier mail, typical mail, cannot be carried by a private service. So there used to be the Pony Express in the Wild Wild West days, right? The Pony Express, you could either give your letter to the U.S. Postal Service and hope it got wherever it was supposed to go, or if you actually wanted it to show up on time, you'd give it to the Pony Express. These guys get on their horses or a train or wherever, and they'd ride across the damn country and deliver your letter and actually make sure it got to where it was supposed to go and who it was supposed to go to. But then there was a law passed that said they weren't allowed to do that anymore, that they're not allowed to carry carrier mail, so that only the United States Postal Service is allowed to do so. Now, I'm not against the United States Postal Service existing, but if it's so great at its job, why did we have to pass a law removing the competition from that space for it? Economically, that doesn't make any sense. We should encourage the competition, not discourage the competition.
Yeah, I mean, that's just dumbfounding that would happen, but that's the government for you. They're anti-monopoly unless it's their own thing, and then it's all about the monopoly.
So there's a lot of things there that are going on, and we'll have to save some of these for a later episode, but there's some great things that are going to be occurring here in the next couple weeks, and we've got to keep moving along with the way the country's going. And one of the great things we're seeing is that states, local municipalities are able to start opening back up from the COVID-19 epidemic. They're able to start getting people back out. The economy is starting to move. The price of oil, although today it came down a little bit, has been tipping back towards where we want it to be. It's not great. It's not to where drilling is going to come back or that people are going to start going back to work, but at least it's coming back to the point where the possibility exists that those things will occur. We need to see $40 to $45 a barrel. Right now we're at about $33, but the price has been coming up about $1 or $2 per week. So hopefully that trend will continue. We'll continue to see the price of oil moving towards the corrected mean and getting back to where profitability can occur amongst the drilling companies. The other things that are happening right now, which are, really big things, is that we're starting again, and we'll say this again, NASCAR now had several races and have had no real issues. The UFC has gotten approval to have a fight in Las Vegas, which is great. We're going to see that Vegas fight again. We're starting to see baseball. It looks like July 4th if the players and the owners can come to an agreement, and we've pretty much now gotten every assertion that football in both pro and college forms will occur. And there's even now negotiations ongoing about when basketball and how it will come back. Even the NHL is making plans to come back late summer, early fall. So the great news there is that we're seeing oil prices tick up. We're seeing sports start to come back. We're starting to get that semblance of normalty. And Kyle, I don't know if you saw, the CDC released some data today. And in that data, they said amongst symptomatic carriers of COVID-19 that it's a 0.4% chance of mortality. So 0.4, so 99.6 chance you'll live if you show symptoms of COVID-19. But that's only symptomatic. They then hypothesize that 35% of cases are asymptomatic, which brings it down to a 0.24% mortality rate.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying for a while, is that, while this is horrible and people are getting sick, and yes, people are dying, and yeah, you're seeing the 100,000 people today, or recently that we've had the 100,000 people said that they're died through corona. The actual rates have been so minusculely small that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why we're still locked down, because the hospitals are not being overrun. Even here locally, Baylor Scott and White laid off people, and that's the hospital, man. That ain't the clinic. And it may have been in the clinics that they fired people or laid people off, but that is, you would think if they're hurt, they'd pull the people out of the clinics and bring them to the hospital to work there. But they're unfortunately having to lay them off because there's just not enough work, because they're only focusing on COVID, and there's just not enough there to keep everything going. They have opened back up and started doing elective surgeries again, which is where they actually make money, but it's not nearly at the capacity that it would have been or could be if all this stuff were to finally just kind of die down. So yeah, the numbers that we're seeing, and the other thing about the numbers that we're seeing on the 100,000 is you have people coming in gunshot wounds dead being listed as coronavirus death.
Mm-hmm.
Because the hospitals are trying to get as much money as they can, and they know that if they list it as coronavirus, they'll get more money.
Well, that's right. And now one other topic before we end the show for the night, because we're getting to that point, is I want to talk about is the fact that Twitter has now started, at least on one specific tweet, has issued a fact check on a tweet. And people are rightfully up in arms on both sides about this. The left is up in arms that they didn't do it sooner and that they should continue doing it more vigorously. The right, of course, is arguing that this is another form of suppression on the right, because what the left did, or what the Twitter did, is they said that Trump's tweet about mail-in voting have a potential for having greater fraud than traditional voting, which is 100% factually correct. There's nobody on the planet Earth that disagrees, other than hardcore leftists that just want the possibility to steal votes, that the chances of fraud are much higher in mail-in voting. But the other side of this is, not even including fraud, 28 million votes over the last 4 election cycles that were mail-in votes were never counted. So they weren't, it may not have been fraud, they just were never counted, which means 1 out of 5 ballots sent in mail-in voting in the last 4 election cycles were not counted.
Yeah, and they, in the fact checking that they linked to, were articles from CNN and Politico and stuff saying, "Oh, this would never happen. It could, this just would never happen." Now, one thing that Trump did say that was a little bit, that did need to be fact checked, and I'll give him this one, is he said that Newsom was going to send it to all people in California, regardless of how they got there. According to the sources out in California, they're only sending it to registered voters. Now, they're also trying to push for same-day registration, so maybe there is some truth to it'll be sent to everybody. Who knows?
So, one of the arguments I saw was that this would increase voter participation. Okay, maybe slightly. But when 20% of the votes cast aren't counted, and now let's look at something here. So if 28 million out of the last 4 election cycles, the math comes out roughly then to 100 million votes. So if we divide that back, that means that 25 million votes essentially per election cycle were cast. Right? That's essentially where we're at right now. Oh, I'm sorry, it actually would be about 130 million. So 30 million per election cycle were cast and not counted. So 30 million out of that, 20% of those not counted. Now let's increase that to 200 million people. And let's not count 20% of those. And in an election where we saw that 1 million voters can change everything, right, in one state or another. Again, with the Electoral College, you don't need to swing the overall. You need to go to one state and swing one state a certain direction. That you need to go to Ohio. You need to go to Florida. You don't have to go after the entire population of voting.
You can almost ignore California and New York and just focus on the other 48.
Yeah.
I mean, you're, at least as a Republican, the chances of winning New York and California are slim anyway. But if you focus on the swing states and the battleground states, and really put your efforts in there, your chances of winning go up significantly. And that's exactly what Trump did. And that's why Hillary lost in 2016. Because how many times did she go to Wisconsin?
0. Grand total of 0 to Wisconsin during the 2016 campaign. So she relied on the Russian hoax, which was because she created the Russian hoax. Her team built that. The Podestas.
And anyone who spoke out against it, Tulsi Gabbard, got accused of it too.
Yeah. So there's that. But if you are thinking about casting a mail-in vote, there's a 1 in 5 shot, a 20% shot that your vote will just never be cast, regardless of who you vote for. That's not even including the opportunity for fraud, right? So even if there's a 10% chance, greater chance that a mail-in vote will have an opportunity for fraud, because if your vote never reaches its destination, then the vote, it's so when we're talking fraud, what we're talking about is somebody casting your vote for you fraudulently, taking
or
your vote,
changing your vote, something like that.
So we saw a mail carrier who was changing ballots and taking them and writing in the candidate of his choice, trying to sway elections. So it happens, right? Mail theft is a real thing. It occurs every day. Somebody's mail gets stolen.
Just ask our father and his tax return a few years back.
Yeah,
his W-2 got stolen out of the mailbox, and yeah, he had fun. Luckily, they caught the guy trying to cash the check in Houston and got his mail back. But yeah, it was interesting times, and that was in rural Dime Box, Texas.
Well, and most likely it was stolen out of a sorting facility. Right, it wasn't stolen from the actual mailbox. That's where everybody gets this misconception, is that the mail is actually stolen out of somebody's mailbox. Well, wouldn't you have caught him doing that? Wouldn't people be seen? No. There's the mail.
Our dad's mailbox is up on the highway, a good quarter of a mile away from his house. He doesn't sit there and watch it. But he goes up and checks it once every couple days.
But the fact is that every piece of mail that gets to you has been touched by about 4 or 5 other people minimum by the time it gets to you. That's 4 to 5 opportunities for somebody to figure out what's in that check and steal it. Right? So people are going to know what these addresses are. And that's not even to say that mailbox sitters wouldn't occur. That people wouldn't just sit there and watch mailboxes and wait for it to be delivered and then go take it out of a mailbox and cast the ballot as if they were somebody else. We already see that the left is pushing that we don't want any identification, right? We don't want people to have to identify themselves when casting their ballot. We want them to just come cast their ballot, say who they are, and move along, which, again, racism and low expectations. You don't believe minorities have the mental capacity to figure out how to get an ID. But mail-in voting
keeps them from voting at one voting station and then going to another voting station and then going to another voting station.
Or just saying that they're somebody, saying that they're their deceased mother who wasn't removed off the ballot. You know, and that's another thing the left hates, is they hate when we take and strip out the voter registration cards, because they don't want those dead people getting taken off. They want those dead people being there.
They've got people ready to vote for those dead people. Just give them a chance, and they're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, if they know it's there. So, of course, the left is trying to play a bullshit game here, because they're trying to say, oh, well, it's not that much more likely for fraud. But it's a lot more likely that you cast your vote and it never gets counted. That it never whether that means that somebody at the county clerk's office decides not to count it because it's a paper ballot and they don't want to take the time because it's a lot easier just to push the button on the machines and let it tally everything up for you, or whether it means the mail carrier never got it to where it was supposed to go, or it never got to you in the first place, right? Or
how many times have I lost shit in the mail? Let me count. Shit, I lost track. It's too many.
I'll tell you what, if I'm mailing anything important anymore, I mail it certified. To where, yes, I have to pay a larger fee, but I get a letter back. I get a signed thing back saying that the person received it. and then I have an assurance of that, and I'm not just guessing. Especially if I'm sending in, say, something legal or something of that matter, I want to make sure that the person can't claim they never received it. I've sent in deposit checks before. It's like, okay, you showed me that you have it. Now you can't claim that you never got it. Guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. It's been a long time. It's been a great time. Thank you so much to Kyle for joining us tonight again. Guys, our links to our Twitter bios are down below us. You can also look in the description. See our Twitter links there. Make sure you go follow us on Twitter. Make sure you follow Kyle on TikTok. Go like our Facebook page. Kyle, tell them what the Facebook page is.
It's SchuBros Unfiltered, man. Facebook.com/SchuBros Unfiltered.
So go there, take a look at our Facebook page, like it, share it, make sure your friends know about it, make sure your friends know about our videos. Put them out there, share them on your timeline. We're not going to be upset about it. Tag us in it. We're not going to be upset that you're sharing our stuff. We appreciate the 25, 30 viewers we're getting right now.
Try to troll Ross on the Facebook page. A, he's probably not on there.
B, yes.
And B, he appreciates it. He likes it.
I do like a good trolling.
He welcomes the challenge.
Work's kind of slow right now. So giving my brain something to do is often a nice thing. And yeah, Twitter trolling is something for me to go attack you on. And it allows me to go research things, because then it's like, oh, well, I got to find some fact to beat this guy. So then I'm on Google just like, where can I find some?
So we did see one positive thing in news today. Can I talk about the positive recruiting news that happened?
Sure, real quick, 2 minutes.
Deuce Harmon committed, 4-star cornerback, number 1 cornerback in the state of Texas, at least from a pure corner standpoint, committed to Texas A&M today at around 2 p.m. I got a nice little text message from TexAg saying, "Yay, he committed." And I went ahead and shared that to you and let you know that he's on the train and 9th commit for the year.
So that's a good recruit for Aggie, because A&M has long needed secondary players. That's been a dearth of their talent level for a long time. They've lost to Texas. They've lost to Alabama. They've lost to LSU when it comes to secondary players. We've seen that for years and years and years and years. For somehow Texas can still recruit secondary players. I don't know what it is about Texas that they can recruit secondary players.
That DBU thing that they perpetuate. But the fact of the matter is they've had just a horrible secondary the last few years.
Well, that's
couldn't stop nobody.
Mostly due to coaching.
Yeah.
But LSU, Alabama have stolen a lot of the Texas cornerback recruits. So hopefully this is a good sign of some Texas cornerbacks will start making to A&M a bigger priority for them. And I think that could help out, because you got to be able, A&M has done a good job of building their D-line and their linebacker core to be able to deal with the run defenses that the SEC has, the Alabama and LSU run defenses, but they have a hard time when those teams can pass. And we've seen them struggle.
With Joe Burrow.
We've seen them struggle with Georgia, with Joe Burrow, with Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama when he was there. And we're going to see them continue to struggle, but they got a good safety in this last year's class, right? They got one of the top safeties in the country.
Yep.
And now they bring in a really good corner, and hopefully that'll build.
They actually had one of the top cornerbacks in the state as well for last year as well, but he's kind of could go safety or cornerback, but he considers himself a cornerback, and that's what he is coming to play as. So we'll see what he ends up when he actually gets on campus. But right now, Jalen Jones from last year, and then had a couple of out-of-state kids for safety that look like they're going to be players. I think the secondary is going to be vastly improved this year.
All right, so for everybody, that's Aggie news. For everybody else, thank you so much for paying attention to us. Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you would, please do like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. You're watching the videos. You may as well anyway. You're coming back week to week to week. We see the same viewers every week. You may as well like and share. You may as well hit that notification bell. You may as well share it to your Facebook page and to your Twitter account and wherever else you put it. Make sure people know who we are, what we're doing. This Saturday, again, Kyle fishing with the big bait. Brought in a good guest for you this Saturday, noon this time. So it's going to be a little early for us, but Saturday at noon, we will have Tophertown music here live on the show. We got some other guests we're working on. We'll keep you informed as those come along. But thank you so much to everybody. Thank you to Kyle for joining us. Click the links down below to make sure you follow us wherever you do follow people, and have a great night.
Thanks and give 'em, and God bless.
I just keep calling on the help of my peers, but their success makes me distressed. Things will be better when I disappear, bouncing from city to state. Nothing feels great, I'm a committed disgrace. If I could get up, hold my chin up, confidence is just a bluff for the weak. Might take a peek in my self-pity to realize it's selfishness for the meek. Just take these pills, it makes it better, but withdrawals will make you seize up and tweak. You gotta buy it every month, we change the brand, it's